Letting go is what healed my abandonment wound, and there is no question about that. Hey, what's up, everyone? It's your girl, Keemah.G. Who else would it be? And welcome to the Keemah.G podcast. Thank you so much for kicking it with me on this video. Stick with me to the end of this video, and I'm going to be sharing with you how I healed my abandonment wound through letting go. It's going to be interesting and it's going to be a conversation. So leave me those comments below. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you ever experienced an abandonment wound. I would love for you to be a part of the conversation. So before I get into explaining to you guys my abandonment wounds and how I've learned that I had an abandonment wound, and how it showed up in my life, I think it's important for me to tell you guys what an abandonment wound is. Now, I wasn't going to try and get my own definition. I searched up a few definitions, and this is what I came up with, what I feel will speak to you guys the most. So let me read it to you guys. And please do mind, I have a cold. I have a really, really bad cold and it's coming to the end. So I may sound a little stuffy. So an abandonment wound is a deep emotional scar from from letting. Let me start over again. An abandonment wound is a deep emotional scar from feeling left, rejected, or unimportant, often stemming from childhood neglect, loss, or inconsistent care, leading to lasting self worth, fear of being left, and relationship struggles like clinginess or pushing people away to avoid pain. So, I first want to start off by saying that I had an amazing grandmother who raised me with love, who raised me with shelter. And even though she did not say she loved us every single day, based on her actions, she allowed me to know that I was loved. So I didn't feel unimportant. I didn't feel neglected. I didn't feel rejected. I felt like I belonged when I started to live with her. And that was a place where I called home. My abandonment wound came because of a loss, because of a loss as a child, and that created trauma. And the way that I showed it in two different ways growing up. I showed it when I was younger. It was very much like I don't want to let people in very easily, and I push people away because I rather you just not get close, because if it doesn't work out, I don't have to deal with the pain of the loss, because that reminds me of the loss that I experienced when I was younger. I only learned this when I was way older. So I had my core friends, and I always used to, that saying, no new friends. That was, I didn't have that saying back then, but that was my actions. Like I knew these friends since I was younger. I'm just going to stick with them. And that's just it. It's hard for me to try and get to know new people. I'll talk to everybody, I'll be friendly. I'm very social, but being close to me is something that was a no no. So it wasn't easy for people to break those walls to be like, hey, I like to get to know you in a way, when I was younger. When I got older, my abandonment wound showed up for me more in my relationships. And I learned that once I learned that obviously I had an abandonment wound. And I'm going to be even more transparent. I only really learned that and confirmed that in my life about 4 years ago. So it showed up in my relationships because that wound allowed me to stay longer in relationships than I needed to. And I'm going to explain to you that, because I can't just make a point and just not explain to you guys. When some at some point in time, and if you're in your 20s or you're even your early 30s, even your 40s, and you're in a relationship, at some point in time, you have to realize to yourself, and I had to realize to myself, that if it's not growing and if it's not progressing, stop trying to fight for it to go in that direction. I was fighting and holding on to relationships that weren't growing. And the reason why I was holding on to those relationships that weren't growing is because I had a fear of letting go. Not even a fear, but I did not, maybe it's a fear. I'm call it what it is. Maybe it's a fear. But I didn't want to let go because I did not want to experience that pain of loss. I didn't want to experience that. And I put my work into it, and I obviously there's feelings and emotions attached to the person. But the truth is, when something is not growing, and this is where it takes maturity, I'm realizing, and this is where it takes loving yourself, is saying to yourself, it's not working, it's not growing, we're not evolving. So it's either we're going to have that conversation and we're going to put things in place so that we could better meet each other's needs and we could grow equally yoked together, or we go our separate ways. But what we do instead, when we're broken, when we're unhealed, when we're growing, we try to fight for things that are no longer aligning with who we're becoming. And that's what stagnates our growth. Another way that my abandonment wound showed up in my relationships, and this is where maybe if any of the men that I've dated before, they're probably like, like in times when I should have been more responsive, I was way more reactive. And I was way more reactive in a sense of over explaining. Let me over explain, over explain, over explain, over explain, over explain. The over explaining is a sign of trauma. You know what I'm saying? Constantly over explaining when there's a situation happening is a sense of trauma. And constantly explaining yourself when a person wants to act like an AWS, no, that's not understanding your self worth. And I over explained because of the fact is that I wanted things to be so clear so we could be in good standing. Let me be in good standing with everybody. There goes the little girl coming up again. Let me be in good standing. Let me be in good standing because I don't want people to leave. And I put my effort into it and I put my heart and I open myself up. And it's like now they're going to leave. You know what I'm saying? It was that fear of letting go. It was that fear of being abandoned. And it was that wound that I never completely healed from because I never was fully aware that I even had it. And that's the important part of dealing with your childhood situations and traumas, whatever you want to call it, because it will travel with you in your teens, in your 20s, in your 30s, and you better get a hold of it before you're 40. And if you don't, that's okay. Try and get a hold of it in your 50s and maybe in your 60s. But I always believe that there's always a time to grow. And everybody still has that opportunity to evolve and to grow past their traumas, especially their childhood traumas. So, how did I begin healing my abandonment wound? I don't want to make this long for you guys, but I am going to be very transparent as usual. Am I 100% healed? No. I'm about 95% healed, and I'm very proud of that. And the rest of the 5% is just in my head. And I say that because when things do arise and I do get those thoughts, I'm just like, not today. Like I have the self-control to identify. No, not self-control. I know when to identify when that wound is still needs some healing. It's not completely healed yet. And it's in my thoughts in my head. So I know how to cast down those thoughts. And the more that I cast down those thoughts is the easier it gets. And it's the less those thoughts stay longer. But would I say those thoughts come often? Absolutely not. Would I say that those thoughts are reoccurring in different situations all the time? Absolutely not. And for me, that's a win. And why I say that I'm 95% um, healed is because recently, in these last several years, there was a situation. And that's what actually woke me up, you know, time to realize that I had an abandoned wound. And like I said, recently, I made the decision to be like, okay, if this is not progressing, if this is not evolving, whether it's friendships, family ships, relationships, work ships, there was certain situations that happened in my life where I took a stand for myself. And I said, no, you know what I'm saying? I know I'm acting out of the place of abandonment and I don't want to act out of that place of abandonment. So this is what I'm going to do moving forward. And that's how I know that I was like, okay, girl, you're winning. This wound is healing up. You know what I'm saying? It's 95% healed, and the rest is all in my head. But the question is, how the hell do I do it and continue to do it? But before I tell you how I did it, let me just talk about how I discovered it because I missed that part in the video. So I discovered that I had an abandonment wound 4 years ago. I mentioned that like 5 times already, but 4 years ago. And is when I went into work one day. Let me tell you this quick story. I went into work and I was just like, what's going on with men? You know, like, my God, I took a big break and it's like, you know, what's going on with men nowadays? And I was talking about a training, and it was a training on trauma that we do with children. And the person that organized and created the training, he was walking by and he heard me talking about it. So he came into my office. I want to shout out to Darrellton James. I don't know if you're ever going to see this video, but Darrellton, this I owe this discovery to you, man. I really do. So he came into the office. He's like, "Are you guys talking about my training?" And we're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "What is going on with men?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" So I'm like, "What is going on with men?" So he was just like, "What do you want to like?" He's like, "Explain to me." He's like, I'm like, "I feel like they're just," and he's like, "You could say it. You could say it." And he said a word which I don't want to say on here. And I was just like, "Yeah." I'm like, "That's what I feel." And as we're talking and as we're talking, he asks me a question. And in the space of less than 3 minutes, he was able to get me to identify exactly where my trauma stemmed from and what I was dealing with. So he asked me if I'm going to get it correct, because I don't want to get it wrong. He asked me 3 questions. He says, "When did you experience your first heartbreak?" And I said, I was about almost 6. I was turning 6. And he goes, "And what happened?" And I said, "Someone passed." And he goes, "Okay." And he said, "How did that make you feel?" And I felt alone, you know? And he goes, "Okay." So he goes, "Would you say the word," I said, "abandon?" He's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay." And from then, and I just started to bawl. I honestly started to bawl my eyes out because he was hitting a space that I knew was there, but I didn't know how to put it into words. And because of that, it made me very emotional. And let me tell you something, your girl is not going into work crying. You won't catch me crying unless I'm crying around Kathleen. That's my girl, or Caroline. But I'm not trying to cry in front of every and anybody. Absolutely not. But at that moment, I couldn't help myself and I didn't care. And it felt so good because someone seen exactly what I could not put into words. And that melted my heart. So let me get back to explaining to you guys how I continue to heal my abandonment wound. There's 2 ways on how I healed my abandonment wound. And one was co-regulation and 2 was self-regulation. When I speak of co-regulation, for me, what it looked like was a therapist. That's exactly what it looked like for me. And the second thing was building a relationship with God. There's nothing wrong with therapy. I advocate for therapy all the time. I think everyone should do it if you haven't done it before. You know what I'm saying? Because there's so much that you could gain from it with a good therapist. And sometimes you don't always have to travel the road by yourself. Sometimes it's okay to say, I have identified this within myself. This is what I'm working with, and I need somebody to help me through it? And that's where I was at. But I didn't clearly know that it was an abandonment wound. But over those sessions and years, he helped me through my trauma and he helped me understand things better and he helped me identify things within myself. And whether, like the story that I just explained to you with Darrellton, he's a clinician at work, and he's a part of the psychological services in our department, in my on my floor. We're in 2 different departments, but he is a clinician, and he was that co-regulation that I needed in that moment. And just by him having that conversation with me, he solidified something in my life that was unknown but very apparent for years, that helped me to not continue to make the same um, not to continue to be in the same situations or have the same relationships moving forward. Like before, I was letting go because I was just spiritually building my relationship with God. I learned that through the word and just through prayer, and just through listening to my intuition, that there were certain things that I needed to let go of. And it hurt, but I didn't understand why it hurt so much. I didn't understand what it was doing to me. I wasn't clear on that. So I believe co-regulation is very good. There's nothing wrong with co-regulation. If you need to find a therapist, I would suggest that. That doesn't mean that everything's going to go away in one session or two sessions, three sessions, or, but I just know that for me, this is what worked for me, and I can only speak on myself. But co regulation is one way on how I heal my abandonment wound. Self regulation is another way that I heal my abandonment wound. And I do that by letting go. I have learned that when things are not progressing, when two people are not on the same level, when it's not growing, when it's not evolving, not to just stick around because I'm trying to avoid feelings of loss. When I have that feeling and I know that's what I'm doing, which I don't often do anymore, that often, but that's when, especially in relationships, I'm just like, let me just let go. And if God miraculously happens to form our relationship stronger than what it is, then God is going to do it on its in its own in His own time. Also, silence. Silence is another way that I self-regulate, especially during disagreements or conflict. I'm learning that silence, there's so much power in silence, because when you're silent, you're able to actually feel yourself and feel what you're feeling in the moment, and you have that control on how you're going to respond. And that's how I self-regulate when it comes to this wound. And the more I do this self regulation, the more I co regulate and go to God with certain things, because now I don't have a therapist anymore. I don't go to therapy, but I'm more into my word, is the more I'm able to see that this abandonment wound is healing faster than I ever thought it would. In the space of the 4 years, 4 years ago, when I clearly identified what it was. Um, so, yeah, that's where I'm at. And it's a wound that has caused me a lot of pain. But I think in pain is for a reason, like we give birth, we have a lot of pain, but then we come out with something beautiful. So even that, I'm learning to understand that pain is not a bad thing. It's not comfortable, nobody enjoys it, but oftentimes there's something very beautiful at the end. And that's what we're all hoping for when it comes to this journey, if you're on this journey. So it was painful. It was painful learning that I had the abandonment wound. It was painful going through the process of letting go, because it's something that I just didn't like to do. And there's also another part to it. I had to learn too that it's okay to let people in. It's okay to get to know people. But the older I get, the more wiser I become, is the more I'm able to discern who and who's for me. And I'm able to align myself with the people that are equally yoked in that sense with me. So it doesn't feel that way anymore, because they say with age comes wisdom, but I don't believe that. I think with life lessons and observation and being objective, and really clearing into your relationship with God, is what allows you to become wiser. And the wiser that you are, is the better that you're able to make decisions in your life that are healthy. And I think healthy should be the new norm. We're so it's so easy to be unhealthy. It's so easy to be angry. It's so easy to live in your trauma, because sometimes that's all you know. But try stepping outside of something that you don't know and doing something differently. It feels uncomfortable at first, but it's nice. It's a beautiful light. And I really am trying to do that for myself. I'm not trying, I'm really doing that for myself. And I really think that healthy should be the new norm, and anything unhealthy should be tackled. It should be addressed, and it should be supportive and directed in the right way for people to get the support that they need, so that they can live the healthiest life that they can. So that's what I had to share with you guys this week. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, please. Share my videos, leave me your comments, and tell me what you feel about abandonment wounds. I'm really eager to hear you guys' story. And that's it for now. Next week, I'm coming with another video. And this one is interesting because it's going to be interesting. So yeah, that's all I have to say for now. And I've had like computer problems. I got into a car accident on Monday. I have a cold. Like, it has been such a challenging 2 weeks. But either way, I wanted to show up today. I wanted to deliver you guys a video. Every Thursday, you can catch a new video here. And my interview with my boy is coming. I just have to get these damn videos in alignment. So, as always, stay fly, stay fabulous, stay focused, stay godly, stay prayed up, stay all the way up. and have yourself a great day.